Yeah, I would hate to feel like it's rocking.
Welcome. The hour being 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. The Tooele City Council and the Redevelopment Agency of Tooele City are meeting in a work meeting. This work meeting is being held at the Tooele City Hall Council Chambers located at 90 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. This is also being broadcast electronically on the Tooele City YouTube channel. We will start with a roll call. Councilwoman Manzione.
Present.
Councilwoman Goches.
Present.
Councilman Hanson.
Present.
Councilman McCall.
Present.
I'm Councilman Brady, and I'm also present. We'll move on to item 3, which is our mayor's report.
Thank you, Chairman and Council. I have great news to report tonight. In the last couple of weeks, we have done some ribbon cutting for some new businesses and one for an existing business that has expanded. So I have pictures here. First, this is Tooele Valley Pumping. So Tooele Valley Pumping has been in business for 15 years, but they started out as basically a home-based business running an office and their employees out of a home in Erda. And about 3 years ago, they purchased a piece of property up in Tooele City. And we were so grateful, and it has taken them a couple of years to finally get a building built. And it is a beautiful building. So their offices are now located there. They have their working staff all together now instead of working out of vehicles, and some at one location and some at another location. They're all centrally located. They were the general contractor on their own building, and so it really is a great facility for their employees. They have grown, their business has, and we're just really excited about them and their new building. So we're grateful that they chose to come to Tooele City. The next two are brand new businesses. And the first one is Alicia's Bakery down at 7 North Main. And if you have not been there, get down there. You have got to go see this bakery. They get there very early in the morning to start baking, obviously. But they open at 6 a.m. and they're open till 9 o'clock at night. They're just open all the time. And the owners are just really, really great people who have taken the opportunity to open this bakery here in Tooele. They were trained by their uncle, who for many, many years has run a bakery in the Salt Lake area. And he's got one in West Jordan, I believe, so they told me West Jordan. So there's 2 bakeries in there that they're, again, relatives, but I'll have to tell you, these guys know how to do a ribbon cutting. That day they had a 6-member mariachi band that came out and played in the snow. It was really kind of cold outside that day, but they stood there for an hour and played, and it was just a really great event. But I will tell you, they're very great to help you when you go in and explain what everything is, and they're just a really, really great group of people. So we're really excited about them. So get down there and try out the bakery, and they're open 7 days a week, so they're always there. The other one is Chipotle. Finally, we have our first business open down at the 10th and Main location. And now they're going to start coming online fairly quickly, these businesses. But we were really excited to spend that morning. The council was there, also several members of our staff. And we had the staff running the business there at Chipotle, but we also had the owners of the property, the Kimballs, came out that day, and it was just, we keep saying it took us like 15 years to make this happen, 15, 20, give or take a year or two. But it finally is happening, and we're just really excited. And to remind our residents to shop at our local businesses, support them. They support us in the things that we do at the city, and all of them are so good about supporting different events in our city too. And at the end of the day, that is going to help greatly with our sales tax and with our property tax. They will help to pay those taxes so we can alleviate that burden on our residents. So these are just 3 that were in the last couple of weeks, and there will be many more to come. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. We'll move on to item 4, which is the council members' report. We'll start with Councilman McCall.
Oh, I attended the Arts Council as well as to that ribbon cutting, and I'm missing something, but yeah, that's all I got. I know I did something else, but I can't remember what it
It's
is.
hard to keep track. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Councilman Hanson?
I was just thinking that he didn't tell you that he took a month off from city council meeting.
I did?
I did.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Oh, see, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, since we didn't have one 2 weeks ago, it's kind of nice, but yeah. Lots going on in the city, and every time I turn around, there's something new that I don't know about. So that just means when the residents are asking me, I know a little. So anyway, but went to planning commission meeting. Them guys do a great job as always, and other little events along the way. So that's my report.
Thank you. Councilwoman Goches?
Thank you, Chairman. I also was able to attend part of the ribbon cuttings and attended Chipotle. Had to run off to the airport. I had family from out of town, but it was a nice day. I attended a concert at the Ritz with Carver Lewis and some country western artists, and it was a great turnout and an excellent venue. We had a great time. I also was able to attend the debriefing of the Tooele County Emergency Management. They had an exercise at Tooele High School, and it was nice to be able to experience what our police officers are doing to protect our citizens and to be able to be briefed by that. I know the mayor attended the event. I also attended the Planning Commission meeting via YouTube. I like to be able to watch those meetings, and I thought Andrew gave a really great training. I enjoyed being refreshed on that training, and next week I'll attend library board meeting, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Councilwoman Manzione?
Thanks. I did all of the same things, of course, but a couple things of note. I wanted to just mention that the Tooele Arts Council received a $15,000 grant from Rocky Mountain Power that was used to purchase a stage extension at the Ritz. So that's in the works and should be arriving next week, and it will make the venue even more usable because the stage will be bigger. But there are lots of activities going on there, so be sure to check out the Arts Council website to see what those are. And then I wanted to just also let you know that the Planning Commission had their annual elections, I guess, to determine their chair, and Matt Robinson is the new chair of the Planning Commission. And then I was able to listen in on the league training for the RDAs, which was super beneficial. And if any of you have time, just put your earpods in or something and listen to that. It was really good. And then the legislative policy meeting on Monday was also great information about what's coming, what they see is coming through the legislature. So something that they also provide a link to if you have time to listen to that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I also attended many of the same events as the other council members. Before we go too far into this meeting, I'd like to bring up a budget meeting. We're getting into the budget meeting time, and I mistakenly didn't think of myself when I was planning our first budget meeting. So we had planned it for the last Wednesday in January, and I will be out of town that day. I didn't realize that until about a week ago, so, yeah. So I'm just wondering, I'm okay if we keep that budget meeting, or we can try to reschedule so all of us can attend. So it's early enough in the budget time that we can push it back into February. We feel comfortable with that. So is there a time that works for everyone? Do you want me to email out some days again, and a day of the week that's better for anyone?
Weekend of Valentine's. Whoops. Weekend of Valentine's, that weekend I got the hunting expo from like the 12th to the 17th, that I'm not available in February.
Okay.
That wouldn't work for me, just that particular weekend. Other than that,
Does it the first week of February work?
like the 7th or 6th.
Yeah,
or
we
5th
could do,
or
in the past, we've done a Friday, like at 3 or 4. I know that's hard for some of us that have day jobs. All of us have day jobs, but,
I'll be out of town that first weekend in February from the 7th to the
okay.
11th.
And we can do, it doesn't have to be a Friday. We can do any day of the week.
Council, another option is the second Wednesday of the month is Planning Commission. But if we started the meeting at 5 or even 5:30, we believe that we would have plenty of time to get through before Planning Commission starts. So some of our staff will already be here, and 2 of you will be here for the Planning Commission. So that's another option.
Would that work for you, Ed? You said the 12th is,
I think so, because that's just setup day. This expo actually starts the next morning, so we set up during the day, so I think I could be back for like 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I think 5 would be the earliest we would do it. Would that
Fine for me.
work
It's
for
the Arts
everyone?
Council meeting, but
It's also the Rad Pack dinner.
it's a Rad Pack.
Yeah, that
thing
starts
that
at
day
6.
too.
That's more of an open house, right?
It is 2 hours.
Okay. I'm okay doing it that day, and then it'd be easy to walk over and stop by the Rad Pack as well.
Okay.
Okay,
What day is it?
the 12th of February. Okay, and we'll plan for 5. Okay. All right, that concludes my report. Thanks for doing that. I thought it'd be easier than an email and all of us going back and forth. Okay, we'll move on to our discussion items. The first item is a Harris Community Development Update. This is a presentation by SwitchPoint and the Tooele County Housing Authority. So we will turn the time over to them. We have about 45 minutes. If you could just try to conclude by around 6:30, I think that would give us enough time for our next discussion item.
I can do that. Mayor Nguyen, council members and members of the staff, just by way of introduction, my name is William Ubelis. I'm the Regional Director for SwitchPoint Tooele Community Resource Centre. And if it's not obvious by the name or by this apparent accent that I'm told I have all the time, I'm not from here. I grew up, I was born and raised in New Zealand, and I immigrated to the United States in February of 2023. My previous life has included work in academics, funnily enough around the social services and human services sector, where I've been a lecturer and curriculum developer and program designer for post-secondary programs. I still sit on boards back in New Zealand. One of them is my Tribal Board of Education. And we're designing a multi-year, multi-million-dollar project where we're creating a educational ecosystem that goes from early childhood, basically from birth to post-high school. My wife was born here in Utah, and we married in St. George in 2005. I took her back to the Shire for 17 years, and she dragged me back to the desert. So I'm adapting to the desert and the cold. And we have 3 children and a boxer. My oldest girl is in her final year at high school, which is why I still transit between here and St. George. We're hoping to move here in the summer. And I'll speak more to that later. I began working with SwitchPoint in October 2023 and was asked to come up to be Regional Director for Tooele in March, late March last year. So just I guess a refresh of some information that you may already know. The shelter at Harris Village opened its doors January 4th, 2024, and it's a 44 to 52 bed shelter. It has 18 fixed men's beds, 12 fixed women's beds, and 7 family rooms that vary between up to 4 people or up to 7 people for the larger rooms. And also you may know that we operate the Tooele Thrift Store, the Tooele Food Pantry, the SwitchPoint Coffee and Soda, which is inside the thrift store, and Stepping Stones Childcare, which is a part of the shelter campus. SwitchPoint operates across various locations in the state. Its mothership is in St. George. That's the next one. Also has thrift store and boutiques as well as the coffee store. We have an aeroponics rise garden, which sells some actually, and I'm not propping this for promotional purposes, it's actually really good greens. And Stepping Stones, the first Stepping Stones Childcare, as well as Bed and Biscuits Doggy Daycare. In Salt Lake County, we operate 2 facilities for seniors and veterans seniors and veterans housing complexes known as Point Airport and Point Fair Park. We have a winter overflow or an overflow facility in Redwood. Canyon Rim is our women's mental health facility. And we operate a micro shelter, which is refitted containers, which are nicely isolated, insulated single living rooms. In Davis County, we recently, towards the end of last year, opened a teen living center, which is for teens experiencing homelessness. It's not a shelter. It is a program whereby teens who are currently in school, they need to maintain a specific grade average. They're involved in community activities throughout their time of stay there, and must be involved in that for about 20 hours, and that could be work, volunteering, or sports. But in Tooele, we operate the emergency shelter and these services, as I previously mentioned. I'm going to be exploring the shelter probably the most, but I'll go over some of the others as well and include some numbers. So unlike traditional shelters, we actually have a program whereby it's not just a roof over someone's head. There's an expectation that the people who come to us will engage with our case managers and navigate through the challenges which they face that bring them to us in the first place. With that, we have some entry criteria. For example, there can be no violent or sexual offences on record for the last 5 years for adults, against adults or children. Part of that is because we have children on site and the daycare, so we have to be conscious of that. Generally, if we find warrants, we notify PD. We haven't been quite on top of that as yet, but we are refining processes. We do not accept people into shelter who are on the sex offender registry. Again, that's just because of the safety of the children, not only in the daycare, but all those who are in the family rooms. We do drug tests on entry. If we find somebody pops positive results, we give them a period of time in order to be retested, and as long as they stay clean, they can remain in the shelter. Those we identify as not being able to come into shelter can access drop-in services, which I'll talk about on the next slide, but at this point, our wait list for shelter services, for beds in shelter, is at the lowest point it's ever been, with 4 single males, 3 single females, and 3 families of between 2 to 4 persons each. So on top of the residential people who actually stay with us in the shelter, we offer drop-in services, laundry services, meals, case management, showers, and the various workshops that we try to offer at the campus. At present, we have about 200 people accessing these services at different points. Some just come for meals, others come for other services, laundry and showers, of which we provide all the things that they need. Drop-in clients are encouraged to meet with case management to see if there's any resources that they need to access. It's not always utilized, but it's available if they need it. We report this, the utilization of these services, back to the state. We hold workshops such as budgeting, and just recently, last Thursday, the University of Utah Health Bus or Wellness Bus came out, and they met with about 12 clients, not only resident clients, but other drop-in services. And I have to say, I took my tests as well, so it was pretty good. With the emergency shelter, we are a code blue responder for the county, which allows me to exceed my shelter capacity during the time of the declaration from the state. We drop all the entry criteria with the exception of the sex offender registry, and we're capable of deploying an additional 45 beds. We've determined that we can put 30 beds in the multipurpose gymnasium, or the former gymnasium of the school, and 15 beds in the cafeteria area. It does create a problem because we currently have small laundry facilities set aside for the shelter. I do need larger machines, and they do break down quite often, so the additional laundry created by these code blue nights does create a bit of havoc for my team, but we navigate through it. And just for code blue information on the next slide, it comes from the Department of Health and Human Services through their website. and my team receives texts and emails the mornings of any declaration, and if, as it looks on the map, the code blue, when Tooele County is highlighted in code blue, it allows me to deploy these additional resources. In saying that, we have been underutilized. This chart reflects the code blue nights that have been declared so far in January. The maximum bar of the graph goes up to 45. The blue represents the amount of beds that are still available to be used, and the orange is the actual number of beds that have been taken up. In fact, one night in December, one code blue night in December, we only had one person in. So, and I try to put as much information out on public 411 pages and so on, just with a standard piece of information, and we even talk to people who come in and say, do you have a bed for tonight? Please come and use it. So we're trying to get the word out as best as we can. I need to express gratitude to the county. They deployed one of the emergency operations center's trailers while we were waiting for our long-term beds to arrive. So they've recently taken that back because all our stuff's arrived now, so it's all good. So since opening, we have had 75 men, 52 women, and 13 families, which is approximately another 40 individuals come through the shelter. And that doesn't include our current population, of which we are 100% capacity at this point. 80% of the population that we currently have in shelter identify as being from the Tooele community. Overall, in the last year, approximately 70% have identified as being from the Tooele area. We have helped those who have come from out of area. For example, we had a husband and wife who came to us as a result of being refused any services from another county. They weren't able to access the VA, they weren't able to access mental health services that they needed, and our case management team not only were able to help the husband find employment, but able to get the family the medication and support they needed, connecting with the VA, and they are now in housing. So while in shelter, the clients engage with case management to help with budgeting, job search, housing search, skill enhancement, and linking with treatment resources if needed. And we also give clients responsibilities to help around the shelter. We invite them to take up a specific task. It might be cleaning the tables after a meal, or it could be sweeping the floors or helping with cleaning the bathrooms. They can earn additional tasks to earn switch bucks, which is our internal economy, non-cash economy, which they can purchase products from our in-house switch bucks store or can be redeemed at the thrift store. We have a number of activities in the shelter, such as craft activities hosted by community members and staff, and we host a game night and movie night on a regular basis, although we do keep it to PG-13 movies. Over the last year, we've had to take some actions which some may consider harsh. 22 people have been permanently trespassed from the shelter, and the reasons for that include drugs on campus. And we're not talking the simple stuff, we're actually talking some pretty hard stuff. And not only having it in their possession, they've actually actively solicited it from staff as well as other clients. Some have been physically violent towards staff or other residents and verbally threatening towards staff and other residents. They have stolen property, which we've observed on our surveillance equipment in the shelter. We had to trespass one that was photographing children in the shelter as well as the daycare center. And we've had to exit a couple of people for smoking in our building, despite multiple warnings. Currently, we're working with a second chance program where we're working through with some of these people who have been trespassed to enable them to utilize services, but we are working through that on a case-by-case basis. Well, it's called a soup kitchen. I call it a community kitchen because everybody comes in. It's not just for the shelter. Often we get our friends from Beacon House coming over and having lunch or dinner with us, or both, which is fantastic. We serve 3 meals a day, 7 days a week in the shelter kitchen. We have the Meals on Wheels contract that has another approximately 200 meals Monday to Friday, which are packaged and then distributed to community, and another additional 100 meals Monday to Friday for the Tooele and Grantsville senior centers. The kitchen also prepares the daycare food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as well as the snacks. So we get quite a bit of auditing through there. Our community kitchen, we're serving up to 1,200 meals a week, upwards of 1,200 meals a week, which doesn't include the additional meal preparations for Meals on Wheels and the daycare center. And our calculations reflect that some 65,520 meals have been served from that kitchen since we opened in January last year. We can't cater for everyone or everything, but we do our best with what we're able to provide. A lot of the food does come from donations from the community, and an additional partnership between the Utah Food Bank and our food pantry that allows our kitchen to utilize the food pantry. Speaking of which, during our last reporting period from October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024, some 1,930 families encompassing some 4,550 individuals were served from the food pantry. The average food box weighs between 50 to 80 pounds, and our average incoming month for donation of food, predominantly from the Utah Food Bank, is somewhere around 77,000 pounds. Most of our food, as mentioned, comes from the Utah Food Bank, but we do receive a lot of donations from businesses and individuals. In fact, we had a visit on Monday, actually, from a community school group who are predominantly homeschooled. They came and visited us on Monday, and these 10 children bought just over 100 pounds of food, which we actually didn't ask for, but it was greatly received. Average of about 60 to 100 food boxes per day are issued from our pantry. In fact, one day, shortly after a holiday, I can't remember exactly which one, but we put out 165 food boxes in that one day. We're the distribution point for the CSF senior boxes, and when available, the pantry is the focal point or the resource point where we can issue bus transport if we have the funds available, Utah IDs, and help connecting with other resources. Excuse me. One of our micro businesses in the area is Tooele Thrift. It's the second of its kind in the state, and it takes donations of all kinds, and we sort and sell them. And the proceeds from Tooele Thrift actually help to go fund the shelter operations. It's also a receiving point for the shelter, for blankets and products and things that can be used at the shelter. But we also try and support community members in need. I know I've reached out to a number of people I've seen on 411 citing they need some clothing or some other needs, and I've invited them to come in and meet with us, and thank goodness that they have. So we've just tried to be a resource, and we haven't charged for those services. But with inside Tooele Thrift is another one of our micro businesses, the Switchpoint Coffee and Soda. Again, it's charged with trying to make a profit in order to help fund the shelter operations. We source the beans from South America from family and women-owned businesses and fair trade suppliers. They're roasted and blended in St. George, and on occasion, in my transit backwards and forwards, my car has smelt like coffee, being kind of like the coffee or salad mule for the company between here and St. George. We sell the smaller 7 and 12 ounce bags, 5 pound bags of grounds and beans and K-cups. So we've also just got onto a new hot chocolate supplier, and I actually have to say it's pretty good. So we're proud to have an extensive range of coffee and non-coffee drinks that have actually been designed by our local team. In fact, they've named them after the Tooele localities and schools and so on. Stepping Stones Childcare is a fully registered community childcare, just like any other one that you would see in the community. It's registered and licensed to operate 24/7 if need be. So those who work at night and need childcare in the late hours can register for those hours. We currently have 52 children enrolled and actively attending at various times throughout the shifts. And it was opened in May of 2024. And at that time, 70% of our clients came from the shelter or the Harris Housing Apartments. Currently, we only have one from shelter. Prospective clients can qualify for subsidies, but it's the client's responsibility to take care of the paperwork. But it's a very active, busy, and happy little centre. Volunteering opportunities. When I took up this role last year, there were 35 volunteers on record. We currently now have 240 as of 2 hours ago. A lot of it's assisting with the kitchen at the shelter, but we have a constant flow of volunteers coming through the food pantry, assisting with the sorting of deliveries and product into the various categories and ready for boxing. We do have clients coming in to volunteer to do some of those craft workshops or facilitate activities in the shelter. In fact, just this last December, we had several trainers from VASA, who are the professionals of the high fitness craze that's going on, come in and do a sweat for shelter activity at the campus, and it was a lot of fun, especially seeing one of these trainers jump around in a cookie, in a gingerbread man outfit. But we're always wanting more volunteers, and we're creating as many opportunities as we can in the community. So on to some of the challenges. There's a perception of us being a traditional shelter, and I've spoken to that already. So we do have entry requirements, and a desire for people to navigate beyond their present circumstance into a better situation. We're finding a lot of challenges, especially with those who have high mental health or medical needs. My staff are not trained as therapists or anything beyond basic CPR and those types of things. Even then, our ability to respond is determined by the client themselves. We have to, one of the forms at intake is an authorization for us to actually act in the case of a medical emergency, or not to grant that authorization. So we have to be very mindful of that. We have observed recently a challenge of our clients, especially our local clients, and being able to access, being able to access primary medical care or primary medical services, or the services that they need. And it's taken some drastic measures on the part of myself and my team in order for some clients just to get the basic services that they need. I was called about 5 days ago asking if a person with severe dementia needs could be admitted to the shelter, of which I had to say no, because that's not what we're able to attend to. Currently, we have 3 clients actually who do need higher medical and long-term medical care in the shelter, but we're hitting barriers trying to get them into the right place. Space is always an issue. I may be able to add the odd bed here and there, but ultimately I'm limited by the amount of space that we have in the shelter, and 9 times out of 10 we are full. And employment opportunities, pay rates, and housing opportunities are always going to be a challenge. It's not a challenge that's unique to Tooele. In looking for housing opportunities for myself and my family later this year, I'm taking a survey of available opportunities in the area and finding that houses similar to what we need or what we would require for my family are costing the same, if not slightly more, than we're leasing currently in St. George. And so, and that's me as a professional who would be struggling to, pay that type of situation, let alone those who are at the lower end of the spectrum, who don't have those opportunities and are facing those obstacles right out the bat. I don't go into speeches or presentations lightly, especially with not issuing a challenge to those who I'm speaking to. SwitchPoint's motto is, it takes all of us. And we're just one cog in the machine of this county, in this area. We cannot fix every problem that comes around in the homeless environment or those experiencing homelessness or the effects of poverty. If you look at a traditional clock, there's multiple cogs in there that enable it to do what it does. For coffee drinkers, switching your brand to the SwitchPoint brand automatically makes a difference, and I'm not just trying to promote a brand, I'm trying to propose a mechanism of change. I'd love to see members of the council and community members come to our centre and serve meals and look these folks in the eye every now and then. There's a good chance you probably know some of them. And that's not a bad thing, because you can potentially see how the decisions you make in these chambers can influence the lives of everyday people in the community. And I'm very proud of the team that I have. The team has to make very hard decisions and some life-changing decisions that aren't easy for them. And I sit with my leadership team every week, at least once every 2 weeks, to talk with them about the challenges that they face and how I as a leader can support them. But these are the things that we experience on the daily basis and try to do as much as we can. And we know that we're not perfect at it, and we can only get better with the support of the city and the county and our partners. But I'd love to have you around the facility as much as you can possibly come and visit with us. So this time I'll shut up and take some questions.
Are there any questions from the council?
How much is the
The QR code actually goes to the website. Yeah, the smaller bags are like $15 and the big bags are $55. But, yeah. I should have bought some.
I just know that serving on your board and being part of that and seeing the change over the last year and such since you opened it is definitely getting better with time as you guys figure it out and our community figures it out. So I appreciate that and the way that's been changing and getting better and better, I think. You didn't mention anything about, law enforcement and what our city is in role in there. So I don't know,
That's no slide on you, sir.
I'm just wondering how that's going with that part of it.
And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, we did have a number of interactions early on, especially when I came on board. It wasn't uncommon to see our PD there for various reasons, and we have had to call them. And as I have reported to our advisory board over the last few months, those interactions have gone down. I report to our advisory board, just for the council's information, on the amount of police interactions that we call. Not necessarily the ones that happen at the apartments, but for ones for the shelter. So I think the last month we may have reported one interaction, but I could be wrong.
In 2024, we can't get dispatch to separate Tooele County Housing Authority and SwitchPoint's address. It does on a few, but not enough. But 251 North First Street, which is the same address, we received 518 calls dispatch received. We made 422 reports. This is just for the year. So it's more than one per day. Walmart's our highest abuser. They called dispatch 656 times in 2024, and we did 547 reports at Walmart. And this address, Harris and the Tooele County Housing Authority is closing that gap. And it's everything from residents calling to report their children as missing, running away from Harris, or civil questions to reporting crimes or committing crimes.
So does it seem, from your perspective, does it seem to be getting less with time, or is it about the same still, amount of calls that you guys receive? Like in, I don't know, in December, from the first part of the year to the last part of the year, maybe?
Greatly increased.
Okay.
Which isn't, I can't say it's Switch Point's fault, but the homeless, in our perspective, has increased tremendously since the homeless shelter has come in. Many people coming here because of the shelter, they say they're here now because of it. Which isn't, which wherever they open, that's what they do.
Sure.
They tend to get sent there or head there themselves.
All right. That answers my question. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a question. I have volunteered there, and I think you're doing great work. It's, and my daughter loves to shop at the thrift store, so that's also great for the community.
Sorry
So, so thank you for that. I wondered along that same line, is there ever a point where you hire your own police officer that is just there, is, your own sort of security, or will it always be dependent on the city to provide the police services?
I don't know of a shelter situation where that's actually practical, given the level of funding that we don't have. And while the shelter itself is not there to make a profit, it creates a whole other level of licensing requirements to have our own security on site. And it's, given the level of funding that we receive from the state, just barely allows us to do what we do. I don't see it being practical without additional support, whether that's locally provided or state funded.
Do you know whether or not the legislators are addressing that this year?
I highly
Since
doubt
there
it.
is 4 or 5 shelters in the state?
I highly doubt it, given that my food pantry budget has actually been completely wiped out in the last legislative session. So I don't see them addressing that this year.
Well, it's not you, so I'm thinking of something, but it's not good, and I'm not going to put it on you. Yeah.
You had mentioned that 80% of the current people in the shelter right now are residents of Tooele, or say they're from Tooele. Is that verified, or is it just they state that they're from Tooele?
The only data capture point that we have that gives us that information is a very obscure line that says, what was your last permanent zip code? But that could be anywhere between the last 5 to 10, 20 years when they had a last permanent zip code. So they give us information, and that's what we have to go by.
Okay. And then you said there was 22 people who were permanently trespassed. When they're trespassed, do they just kind of mingle in the community? Is that what we suspect happens with them, or do we think they leave the community?
No, many of the ones that we've trespassed are ones that we see quite commonly local.
That's what I was coming back up for. I think it hit on your police officer. Our biggest problem is the 22 that are not at Harris anymore. They're not leaving, and we deal with them quite a bit for crimes.
And they also factor amongst some of the ones who require some substantial drug interventions or treatment programs that they're not willing to engage in. But from some of the ones that I know, they're again, Tooele locals.
I understand the frustration. I work in healthcare, so I understand the frustration that there's a lot of people who fall in this gray area where they're too sick to leave the shelter. they're not sick enough to be at the hospital, and unfortunately, they do just end up wandering the town and unfortunately cause a lot of problems. So I don't think that there's a magic key to fix this issue, and it'll be an issue that we deal with for many, many years, so.
What I get is, talking to a lot of them, is they don't want resources out of town. They're doing just fine here. They like it here, whether it's the free handouts they get from restaurants or people, or we're just nicer here. Which is partially falls on the police department. In looking at the quarterly stats from October to December, we did 26 arrests, 18 citations, and 89 no action, which is a warning saying for camping, for these doing business on a busy road, it's a warning instead of a citation. So we could be harsher there.
Do you think that would make it any better?
The
If you
homeless
were
board-
harsher?
The homeless board asks us to enforce those.
Okay. So,
Does it make them move on? It gets warrants, and for some reason, they hate going to jail and getting their meals there, so.
I've even thought about that. Free food, you know?
They don't like getting it there, for whatever reason.
Free food, but less freedom, I think
That's
is
what
what
Yeah.
it comes down to,
That's
yeah.
the
It's
problem,
not just
yeah.
a meal, they like the freedom that comes with,
Yes.
at least the several that I spoke to in my line of work, so.
And that, maybe that's part of the reason they don't want to be at the shelter too, and follow the rules there because of the constraints that are there and their lack of freedom
Yeah.
to make their own decisions, I guess, so.
Well, so far, I'm not aware of anyone in the country that has solved
That
this
problem,
issue, and
yeah.
I don't anticipate that happening soon, so.
And
I think we'll keep partnering with you and doing the best that we can with the situation that we're in, but we understand the frustration, and I think you're doing a great job there, and
And I didn't bring that up to be negative, I just knew that it was an issue for our police department, and they're just, so everybody
Well,
kind of
and-
knew what was happening.
And we don't want to be, an unnecessary burden on it, but the situation is that there are people who have come into shelter who have been beyond what we can help with.
Sure.
I'll just give one last quick example. We recently had a client who spent more time in and out of hospital than they were actually in shelter. It got to a point where they weren't even taking their own medication. They had diabetes, they threatened to overdose themselves multiple times. MCOT wasn't responding, and for various reasons. And it actually took myself and the chief operating officer for Switchpoint to say, we need a written psychiatric report that this person is okay to come back to shelter before we will accept them back. Within 3 or 4 hours of our expressing that desire, that person was admitted to a long-term care facility, which we had been fighting for 2 months. And so, that's just an example of one of the obstacles of somebody needing higher level care from this community, in this community, but having to go to another county to get it. And, that's just one of those obstacles that we're trying to navigate through with our other clients.
And I don't want you to think that what I said was a dig at you either when I mentioned the legislators. It's just that the more that our law enforcement officers have to spend time there, it's less time they're spending throughout the city. It requires, basically forces him to increase his staff. And the bottom line, when he has to increase his staff, every citizen in Tooele is going to pay for that. And that is why I mentioned the legislators, because you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The city just does not have the funds to just hire 10 police officers just so we could send 4 of them over there to you. You know what I mean?
I absolutely understand. Sir.
And it's not you, it's the whole system.
Yep. Understood. I do appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we can go past the 6:30s.
So I was going to say, I'm wondering, Mr. Chair, if you would like the Housing Authority piece of this to come back. I can blow through this, but there is a video that I really think would be helpful for you to see if you haven't. First of all, I want to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to come in and give an update. It's been about 11 years since I've worked in Tooele County, and I'm recognizing about half of the faces. For those of you that do not know, I'm Karen Kuipers. I have just stepped in as the Executive Director of the Tooele County Housing Authority. Deanne Christiansen, who did 33 years at the helm of the Housing Authority, was able to retire as of January 1st. She really called me and said, I want to show you what's going on, what we've got going out in Tooele County. And I am excited to see the things that have happened in the last 11 years. Tell me what you would like to do. I know that we're coming up on 6:30.
It's okay. We can watch the video and then you can give a presentation. Do you think 6:45 would be?
Tell you what, I'm going to go through this really fast. I'm going to give you copies. I'm going to give you access to all the data that I'm going to go with, and I'm going to see how quick we can get into the video part of this. Why don't we go ahead and just start? And if I'm talking too fast, let me know. I'll slow down. So the mission of the Housing Authority is really about affordable quality housing. We really do that through collaboration. Let's go to the next slide. I wanted to share with you the questions that the Housing Authority gets from citizens, from community groups, from your constituents. And so I've got a few of these here, and I want to tell you what the answers are that we're giving. Let's go ahead and go to the next. We'll go through these. So what is the current state of mid- and low-income housing availability in our valley? We're segueing from homelessness to housing because homelessness is a housing issue. Homelessness is people who do not have affordable or appropriate housing. So when we talk about the state of mid and low income, let's go ahead and go to the next one. I'm going to show you very quickly some screenshots from the Utah Affordability Dashboard. In 2021, legislature mandated that the state would put together this dashboard. It's really talking about the entire state. It's going to give snapshots of what's available, what the income levels. Let's just actually jump right into it. I'm going to show you both Tooele County and Tooele City slides, and we're going to go through this really quickly. If you look at the left-hand side of this slide, you are seeing the deficit in housing for people that are at 30% of area median income. In 2022, which is when this dashboard was put together, it was supposed to be updated last month. As of this morning, it's still 2022 data. We'll see how quick that changes. But the deficit in Tooele County in 2022 was 723 units that were affordable to people at 30% of AMI. You'll see that across there, 834 for people at 40%, 591 for people at 50%, and 108 for people at 60%. What I want you to look at is that next square there when we cross over into the blue for people that are 70% of area median income or 80%. There was actually a surplus in the county for people in that range. So we're really looking at that under 60% of area median income. So if we had 2256 deficit for number of households and 862 surplus, bottom line is we have about 1,400 households in Tooele County in 2022 that did not have housing that was affordable to them. That affordable housing is usually set at about 30% of your household income. So I'm going to go through these to tell you what that looks like. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. This is Tooele City. You're seeing the same thing. Basic trends the same. Numbers are a little bit smaller, but you can also see that Tooele City, just by the number of residents, you've got a large chunk of what we're looking at in the county. You had a deficit of 1,528 for under 60% of area median income, and that with that little bit of a surplus, that left us at about 1,250. So basically, there was about 1,500 affordable units shy in Tooele City in 2022 for households that made less than $58,000. Let's go to the next slide. I want to show you how they calculate this. If you look on the right side of this slide where you see 806 on that 30%, that means that in 2022 there were 806 households per the Census Bureau that were making 30% of AMI, about $29,000. There were 83 units that were available to this household income level, which shows you where those deficits start. This is a cumulative, so as you go up again, you can see that in all up through 60%, we don't have enough units. And then once you hit 70%, again, we see that flip over. So this is the county. Let's go to the next one. you're seeing the same trends in the city. A little bit smaller numbers, but again, Tooele City has a pretty good chunk of these households. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. So for those of you that don't know, what does that look like? If you're looking where that red circle is on the left-hand side, if you are making 30% of area median income, so your household income is about $29,000, your rent should be about $727 a month. That middle column there shows you what the makeup was in Tooele County for the type of buildings that renters live in. You're going to see, this is a little bit different for a rural county, but we've had 41% single family, and then you can see where those break down for different size units. On the right side, really quickly, put this in the back of your head. Do you see where it says 51.3% of renters in Tooele County make over $75,000? Let's go to the next slide. So, same thing here, this is for Tooele City. Only difference is you're about 46% of renters make over $75,000 in Tooele County. Let's go to the next one. So the next question here is, are housing vouchers going unused due to the high cost of housing? And let's go to the next slide. Back to this slide really quickly. I want to kind of set the stage of where the Housing Authority plays into this overall picture. You've heard of the Section 8 vouchers. Housing Authority has been issued for this county 215 vouchers. We have 215 vouchers for that deficit of 2256 households. So even if we offset affordability, the competition for these units are going to impact the ability to lease up, because remember those households that make over $75,000? Okay, when households come and they're fighting for these units and they're competing for these units, if your household is making over $75,000 and there's already this deficit, it is really, really tough for people in those lowest income brackets to compete for rental housing in the city or the county. Let's go to the next one. Actually, let's just jump to the next slide on this. I want to show you really quickly what this grid is this is showing fair market rents in Tooele County. So you're seeing fiscal year 2021 in that blue column, and it tells you for the studios down to the 4-bedroom, HUD determined that the fair market rent for a studio was $690, and you can see that for the rest of the column. If you go over to that far right column on the FY 2025, that shows you the increases across the year. So in 2025, the fair market rent in Tooele County for a studio is $861. Your percentage of change, what's happened to the prices of housing in the last 5 years, even since this dashboard was created, is we've seen a 25% increase in your rental housing on a studio. You've got a couple that are lower, but you're between 20 and 25% in your increase. That's on the rent side. Let's go to the next slide. If we talk about the area median income, that red square that's in the middle, that says again that your extremely low is about $32,000, $54,000 for 50% of area median income. And 80% or low basically says about $86,400. Let's go to the next slide. And if I'm going too fast, I'm sorry. I'm going to send this to you and then you can look at it later. I want to show you what's happened again, just to give you perspective. If you look on that far left side, that top grid right there, that's talking about if you were at 30% of median income, household income about $34,000, you could afford about $862. You could afford a studio or a 1-bedroom. This was in 2024 fair market rents. What happened, even in with the course of a year, with rents going up, everything that you see in yellow, that just dropped off your affordability. So if you're in a household and your income hasn't changed and the rents have gone up, you just lost in every single one of those brackets your ability to afford a house if we use those numbers. Let's go to the next one. So a couple things I'm going to point out really quick. What is the current state? Let's go to the next slide. Just points of interest. Tooele County, we have 4.4% of households that are under 80% of AMI that purchased homes in 2022. So less than 5% are homeowners that are in this range. If you look at the right side, the other thing to know about rental units is a deed-restricted unit means that there's been a project developed that keeps the rent affordable, and there's a deed that says anywhere from 10 to 15, 20 years, it depends on the funding and the amount of funding. But there's 866 units in the county that are deed-restricted to be affordable, to offset that affordability piece. In the next 20 years, you can see how many of those are dropping off. So in the next 5 years, we have 21 within 5 years and 147 in 6 to 10. Just be aware of that when we talk about affordable housing, okay? Let's go to the next slide. This is Tooele City. Same thing, a little bit higher home ownership in Tooele City. We're almost 6%. And then you've got, again, about 598 units in the city. Let's go to the next one. Really quickly, if you are working in the state of Utah, you need to make about $26.89 an hour in order to afford a 2-bedroom house. We're a little bit better in Tooele County. We're about $23 an hour. We can go to the next one. I want to show you really quick the employment. So, okay, that's the rental side. Let's talk about the employment and the income side. This one I pulled, the last one available is for June, the quarter that ended in June of 2024. This shows where our growth is in wages and jobs. This one particular is in job. So the two that you see in blue, basically professional business services saw the largest increase in that quarter that ended in June. And then the education, health, and social services. Let's go to the next slide. So keep that in mind for a minute. So what does that mean for the areas that we're seeing the growth, and how does that impact housing? If you're looking at the average wages, your education, health, and social services is about $34.80 a month is the average. And then you can see leisure and hospitality. I'm going to tell you the ones that you can't see. So again, if you make over $58,000, you're kind of in that surplus of housing. We're doing really good there. But if you were making that $59.20 that you see up on the top on mining, you're doing pretty good. That's about $71,000 a year. $72,000 if you're making $60.30. What I want to point out is when you get down to that leisure and hospitality, the average in Tooele is $1,641 a month, which comes out to about $19,000 a year. In education, health, and social services, that $34.80 that you see right there, that comes out to about $41,760. I want you to keep in mind $41,760 less where that $58,000 where we're seeing that greatest deficit in the number of units that we have available. Let's go to the next one. Everybody's really excited. I'm excited about this. I love to eat. I love to shop. So Founders Point announced we've got these awesome shops, and we're all excited about it. But when we talk about housing, when we talk about affordability, I just Googled these. You can pull these up. What's the average wage in Utah for these businesses? And you're seeing anywhere from the $14 to the $18 an hour. Remember that $15 an hour is $32,000 a year. $18 an hour is $37,000 a year. Let's go to the next slide. See where those two things fall on our low and very low income. Our $37,000 is down on very low income for a household of 1, $32,000 for a household of 4 for extremely low. Let's go to the next slide. So this leads into what happens when our citizens, when our neighbors in Tooele County are working full-time and their household wages are still not enough to afford or compete for housing. Those households are likely to slide into homelessness. That is why we are segueing from Harris Community Village and homelessness and the cost of housing and where we're at on the housing market in our county. So let's go to the next one. Right now, as of yesterday on the shelter side, this has gone down a little bit, which is awesome. But we have 4 single males, 3 single females, and 3 families who are reporting in daily for the next opening on the shelter side. On the apartment side, we have 33 households that have been verified. When they originally applied, they were homeless verified. There's another 34 that we either can't contact or now they're temporarily housed and they're not going to qualify. So that's kind of where the waiting list is for Harris Community Village. Let's go to the next one. All right, this answers a little bit, Commissioner McCall, as far as the legislation. I'm not going to go through all of it, but if you look at the next slide, what is Tooele County doing? What are we doing? Well, in the affordable or the moderate income housing plan that each jurisdiction submits, everybody's going to address those same things. They're going to talk about density. They're going to apply about how are we improving infrastructure. ADUs is a big one with the state right now for accessory dwelling units. And then also part of that plan or strategy is how are you partnering with agencies that can get those tax credits or what are we doing to partner to get development or to retain affordable housing that we already have. So this is for Tooele County. Let's switch to the next one on Tooele City. I want to talk about that box down there at the bottom. Tooele City has been amazing and I want to thank you. Because Tooele City has been part of the solution when we talk about going back to the moderate income housing plan and partnering with the housing authority to say, what can we do to be part of the solution? Tooele City has helped as we have gone in and had our mutual self-help homes for low-income homeowners to build and put sweat equity in order to build their homes. Tooele City has been supportive as we've looked and said, we have homeless families on the street. How do we get them housed so that we can start looking at how they improve? How are you part of the solution? Thank you for what's been done to be part of this solution. Let's go to the next slide. This is Tooele County Housing Authority in our current portfolio. This just gives you a snapshot. What are we doing? We own Grantsville Apartments, Valley Meadows, Clark Cove Cottages. We have the 5-plex on Utah Avenue. We have the rent-to-own Crown Homes. We have Harris Community Village, and we have the Murdoch and Harvey subdivisions, which are mutual self-help sweat equity projects. We have 155 apartments, 32 rent-to-own homes, and 26 homeowner builders that are earning sweat equity through mutual self-help. The programs that we administer are the Section 8, those 215 vouchers. We also have family self-sufficiency for families that are on the Section 8. They are able to, basically, by making goals and meeting those goals, they get money that's put into an escrow account that they can use to purchase home or do some self-improvement things, and so that's a really good program. We've got the Harris Community Village with permanent supportive housing, which adds case management and support to people that are coming out of homelessness to navigate the systems to figure out how to stay stably housed. And then we have our home ownership. Let's go to the next one. A list, and again, I'll provide this. This just shows you very briefly, 2020-24 general session, there was a lot of activity up on the Hill regarding housing. All of these, once, if you want the links, you want to click on these to get a status of them, you can do that very easily through these links. Let's go to the next one. All right, so what part community members, and again, this is what your constituents, this is what our neighbors are asking. Okay, so how do I help? What do we do? Starting with getting educated. Let's go to the next screen. Let's go ahead and start this video. It's 8 minutes, and then we can wrap up pretty quickly after that.
Remember playing musical chairs? When the music stops, you hurry to sit down, but there's always one less chair than there are kids playing, so each round, someone is left out. Well, imagine if you change the game. You add more kids, but not quite as many chairs, and you let kids start buying chairs from each other. What would happen? As the game goes on, we'd probably see each chair get more and more expensive. Now, what if instead of talking about kids circling chairs, we were really talking about Utahns and the housing market?
We continue to grow as a state. We have our own children that are growing up and looking for somewhere to live, and we've got folks that have caught on to what we have here in Utah.
But as we know, our resources are limited.
The housing market crashed, and a lot of builders pulled back. We lost a lot of labor in our housing market, and we just have never caught up.
Someone on an average income, which those incomes haven't risen nearly as fast, it's just getting increasingly difficult.
We know if we have more housing, the cost will come down.
We need more units because we have a shortage.
Our own kids and our grandkids might not be able to live here in Utah where they grew up.
I am living it right now. I have a married daughter and her husband and their kids in my basement because they can't afford to get into a home.
There are many factors that go into the cost of building a home that we can't control, but there are some things we do have control over.
There's a lot of research nationally that shows that communities that relax their zoning restrictions wind up with more affordable housing. The theory works. Works on the ground, that when you make it easier for builders to build what the market wants, then you bring down the cost of housing for everybody.
In 2023, the Utah Housing and Community Development Division tasked Envision Utah with reviewing local land use ordinances and researching their impacts on housing attainability. The findings, along with national best practices, informed a set of recommendations to bring housing back within reach. And these are the recommendations. Allow for smaller homes on smaller lots.
We did a lot of research. We also talked to developers and cities, and where everybody landed was in the same place, that we need to allow some smaller lots, reduce those minimum lot sizes.
Along the Wasatch Front, we're running out of land. And so it's going to be imperative that we rethink our development patterns.
Most cities aren't allowing any lots to be built that are smaller than about 7,000 square feet. In a lot of cases, we're talking 10,000 or 12,000 square feet. That makes it basically impossible to build a starter home.
Imagine you have a plot of ground that's about 3/4 of an acre. You could build 3 2,500 square foot homes, each with about 1/4 acre of land. With the average cost of the land and the actual building costs, plus some profit for the builder, each home would cost nearly $800,000. But if you cut the lot sizes in half, you can build twice as many of those same 2,500 square foot homes for $625,000 each. Just as important, you've now got 6 homes instead of just 3.
At the beginning, people might be disappointed that the cost of townhomes and maybe smaller homes is not as low as they want it to be, but we have to start somewhere.
When we build new homes, even if they're maybe at a higher price so that a young couple that's just starting out can't afford those new homes, the people who move into it, who can afford it, open up units for other people. And somebody moves into that, and then whatever they move out of might be available for somebody at an even lower price point. More housing helps everybody. We just need more supply that's on the market.
Allow multiple homes per lot or building.
We need a variety of units at different price points.
Myself and my growing kids and our parents can all live in the same community because we have a variety of housing types for every stage of life. That's good for a city, it's good for a neighborhood, it's good for families.
We have these studies that show that the people that are most active in their local government are the people who are the homeowners of the bigger houses. And so it's just kind of a feedback loop. Why do we keep building single-family homes? Because the decision makers live in single-family homes.
It's important for us as leaders to consider the needs of the unseen and unheard people.
And oftentimes the people that would live in apartments or in townhouses or whatever, they don't live in the town yet. And so they're not going to be there to express the desire.
When my husband and I got married, we lived in different apartments as students, and I felt like they were palaces. Like, I was so excited to live in these apartments and have our own place. And now we're looking to downsize. Reflecting back on our own housing journey is powerful because then maybe we could have more empathy for other people that are in different life stages on their housing journeys.
Over all the years that I've been doing this as a planner, the main argument that you hear from people against density is that it's going to lower their property value. It's not borne out by the facts. There are actually studies out there now that show when you have higher density located nearby to a single-family neighborhood, the value in that neighborhood is no lower, and in many cases actually even somewhat higher.
We've seen a lot of communities where young couples move in and they all age in place, and you go from needing a whole bunch of schools and churches to all of them closing at some point and the population declining. So if you can have a variety of housing within one community, it keeps that community much more stable.
The other argument that people make is we don't want those people that would live in higher density units in our neighborhood. They don't fit in our neighborhood. There are plenty of studies out there that show a diverse background of people usually results in a richer community and in better solutions to problems.
Create mixed-use centers.
Doing mixed-use development where you mix commercial and maybe office with residential. What that allows is the potential for reducing the need to get out in a car and go somewhere.
Better air quality, less water consumption, more walkability, more time with your family, or less time in the car. These things matter.
Plus, they're more fun and interesting places to live because there's oftentimes much more going on.
In the aggregate, they mean better quality of life for Utahns.
Not everybody wants to live in a community like that, and that's fine. And not every community should be or needs to be that way. But we need some, because there are plenty of people that would like to live in communities like that.
Make it easier to build more housing.
These builders, they build in multiple cities. Each city's code is different and complex. Sometimes it can take years to get through the approval process.
Which, for a developer, time is money.
Then we need to make it streamlined and easy for them to start moving forward.
The less these builders have to spend in terms of time and money to get through, and then we can get more units on the ground. They can be built cheaper.
I think we probably need to decide more upfront what it is we want to allow in certain areas. And then whenever the development comes in, the zoning's in place, the requirements are in place, and if the development matches it, go to the counter and get your permit and start building.
Change can be hard, it can be scary, it can be difficult. I think for all of us, I love what we have here in Utah. I've lived here my entire life, and my mission is to protect what we have. But if our development patterns don't change to allow for different housing types, we will have serious consequences. The cost of housing will never come down.
It affects people's decisions to have a family, to have more children based on what they can afford.
This is a topic that is so heavy that everybody's got to be talking. And then the solution will be a really personal solution per city.
Each community and city in Utah has unique character, unique values, unique identity. We want to preserve the best parts of our communities, but we can increase housing supply and plan for growth at the same time.
I believe we really can make an impact. This doesn't happen overnight. These aren't quick fixes.
We can't give up. We can't give up on our efforts to be creative in how we're planning and how we're developing and meeting the needs of the people that want to live in our beautiful state.
This is what we need to be mindful of. This is what we need to do as a state of Utah. We can get this right. It's imperative that we do.
So thank you for the support that Tooele City has already given in looking ahead and what we can do to be part of the solution. Two last food for thought. We can go to the next one, if it jumps to the next one. There we go.
Remember playing musical...
I have to hit, there we go. So, as we talk to people in the community that are saying, so what can we do? I want you to know what we're telling them. We're saying get involved. Take those opportunities to challenge those stereotypes about affordable housing, about the NIMBYs and the NOPEs. Educate. Become familiar with the city and county plans and make sure that they're there to support those efforts, to implement those plans. If feasible, look at that ADU part that's on the plans now as part of the state efforts. Where can we have accessory dwelling units? And then volunteer for opportunities to support low and very low income households. And that helps with stability, and when we help with housing stability, that helps with housing overall. Last slide. One last thought. In the short term, the planning for 2024 through 2023, Tooele County is projected to reach 100,000 residents by 2033. The issues with growth, the issues with people not having affordable housing are not going away. We want to be part of the conversations and the strategies and saying, how are we taking care of those lowest income households? How are we taking care of those that are out there working and doing the best to bring those exciting places in that we want to shop at and we want to participate in, and making sure that there's a place for them here in the community and that they don't end up in our homeless shelters. Thank you. Oh, I think I had a question. Hit this next slide, but we can do that later. Yeah, your data's here if you want it. You can jump to any of those. And I think the next one's maybe the next slide. I don't think we have time for questions, but I'm happy to answer if you want.
That had your contact information on the front.
Contact
so we will
information
reach
is
out
there.
If we have questions.
Okay,
So.
thank you again.
Thank you. We appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to our next discussion item. It's a discussion on the selection of Tooele City Council Commission and Board appointments for 2025. All of the council was given a printout of the current positions that are being held. So I just wanted to start at the top, and we'll go through and have a quick discussion about this. This is also on our business meeting to vote on, so if we don't finish in this work meeting, then we'll talk about it in the business meeting as well and have a vote. Okay, the chair and vice chair, it's currently Ed and I. Any opinions about that?
I was talking to Reese earlier today about maybe getting involved with the RDA rather than be where I'm at, so I'm willing to let somebody else do that area for sure.
Okay.
If that's even an option. But yeah, just because I've done this for a couple of years with you. I was a chair for a minute before that. I did work with the RDA right at first when I was first on the council, so I wouldn't mind being more involved with that. So that's not the question you asked, but that's my name's on that line. So, yeah.
Any discussion is good. So.
I also contacted everybody and just let them know that I have availability to take these leadership positions, and I'm more than willing.
I'm happy to stay as the chair if that's the direction the council wants to move with. I'm open to anything, though, and I think it's just important that the council we're unified, right, and we're making a decision we all agree on, so.
I think you do a good job as chair. You run the meetings really well and streamlined. I'm happy with the RDA, I've been there for a couple of years, but I feel like we finally are getting somewhere and know what we're kind of doing, so I'm good there.
Is there any boards that someone wants to try, hasn't been a part of, or?
I like where I'm at, still. I mean, I've
So do I.
pretty much done the same thing forever, but yeah. I like where I'm at. Like
And-
what I'm doing, it's been part of what I've done forever.
And I'm okay, still stand on the Arts Council and the RDA. I'm okay with it, but if you guys want something else, I don't care.
I am on, I think it's appointed by the COG, WFRC committee, which is fine, but I'm happy to let somebody else.
Yeah, COG is tomorrow night, and those recommendations will be made at COG. And then WFRC does accept them or not, so.
I can stay, but I'm happy to let somebody else have an opportunity on that as well.
This is my opinion only, but I do think it benefits the board that we're on to have consistency and for them to be familiar with who you are. And so I like consistency. I think that it helps the council. It's helped the council over the last couple of years to be consistent in the boards that we're on. But I think it also is beneficial for us to be on different boards as well, so. Okay. I don't know. It may
You're
just
in
come down
charge.
to our next meeting where someone makes a recommendation and we vote on it. I don't know how else to do this besides just to have a discussion and come to agreements and give and take a little bit,
So if
so.
Melody wanted to be the vice chair, you still wanted to stay chair, I'm good with that. Okay, I'm not, I'm fine with that. And if Dave still really wants to be the RDA, even though I'd like to do that, I'm okay with that too. so.
No, okay.
Okay, so either
No,
way.
and again, if you guys want to do that, I'm not going to argue or cry about it, you know.
I think that's probably how we all feel.
Yeah, it's just that we're moving, things have started to go, and it's just motivating to see something that
It's
we've
fun to
been-
be part of it.
Yeah, that we've been
Sure.
trying to do for years and years and years, and it's finally here, and get to see them, the development, the opening of things. That is kind of exciting.
I think one thing we could do better at, though, I mean, even as far as the RDA, is we could be better about sending out even like a monthly email to the rest of the board member, or the rest of the council members saying, you know, like, these are the things we've been talking about, so that everybody is more, because we do these weekly check, you know, other week, but we have like 3 seconds to say what we're doing, and it's kind of hard to have to present much other than highlights. So, I mean, I think it would be nice to maybe just do an email report every once in a while, just say, these are some things
I
going on.
agree, that'd be really good, because I feel like I don't know what the RDA is doing.
Right.
So maybe that's not, I don't really want to be part of the leadership. I just want to know what the RDA is doing. I want to know what's going on. And I want to be able to pass that on to the residents when they say, what's going on in Tooele City? And I'm like, I have no idea.
And
No,
I
but
think we could commit to that.
But then
We could, yeah.
411 knows better than I know.
Well,
So,
me
yeah.
too.
The 411 thinks it knows
411
better.
always
Let's
knows.
clarify that.
Oh, yeah, I should have said it right.
Because there's a lot of misinformation on 411.
I was being facetious with that.
Yeah, I know you were.
So,
I just don't want 411 to post that, hey, we know more than the council. Because there's plenty of times where I've had to hold myself back on correcting people, so.
No, I've been
A lot
told-
of misinformation.
Me
out
too.
there.
I've been told last week some things that are coming, and I'm like, really? I didn't know.
Yeah,
Rumor mill.
shocking.
Yeah. it's
oh, yes,
out
I
there.
agree that, Marisa, that would be excellent if that was happening for the council to know what you guys know. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
And we have our
So,
meeting,
too.
RDA meeting once in a while, but really are voting on something that's already decided,
Right,
rather than us being a part of what's
Right.
going on, so.
right.
I don't know how to change that. I mean, that just seems like that's the way it's always been, but maybe we could change it to be different than that.
Yeah, let's make
and
it better.
Make a new way, you
Yeah.
know, of doing things. In this meeting, it seems like we discuss, and we talk of things about the council, but we don't get that in the RDA.
Right, it's almost more like just,
We're here just to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
and it shouldn't be like that.
It really shouldn't, so yeah. that's-
I agree.
Maybe that's, as you know, I'm more than happy for you to stay as the RDA chair, and maybe that's something you can instigate as you go forward with the mayor and so forth and figure that out, yeah. Give you more work to do, yeah.
Love that.
We can handle it.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah.
Dave will do it.
You see?
I feel like
That's
I'm
why I
doing-
said that.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut
She's
up, I
gonna
feel like
pass
I'm
it.
doing all the talking.
Yeah, because she's going to pass it on to me. Like, oh, thanks a lot, Ed.
And it sounds like Dave wants to stay where he's at. Justin and Melody, you guys fight it out for them two positions, and I'll stand
And
back
you know,
and
and
help with
I'm
whatever I
fine,
can.
Very happy with the boards that I'm serving on.
So I'm not going to fight for anything. I know you don't mean
I
it
don't
like
mean
that.
that,
I'm just
yeah,
saying,
yeah.
I'm willing to do whatever
The council.
the council wants. I'm open to anything, so, yeah.
Melody, are
Leave
you
it
willing
at
to be
that.
the vice chair of council?
I can do that, yes. But if Ed,
No, I'm really good with it. I've been at 2 years, and I'm good with doing something different and focusing maybe more on the other boards and different things that I'm on. So, and not having a leadership necessarily, well, they're all leadership, but that's a leadership role in the council or the RDA, but just as a member, so I'm good with that too.
That's important.
And Justin, you've done an excellent job being the chair. I really have to say you do a good job, and you conduct a great meeting, so, and your thoughts are thought out well, so I do appreciate that.
Yeah, okay, any other discussion on this? We'll discuss it again and have a vote in the business meeting, so don't feel like we can't discuss it more in our next meeting. We did have a closed meeting tonight. If it's okay with Mayor, I'd like to do that after the business meeting. And
So if you would, even at this late notice, we're missing Roger this evening. I know that you've noticed. Thank you, Matt, for being here. Roger's father passed away just last night, and he is not available, and I think it would be much more beneficial if we wait for him. And so we could have this same closed session, and we're okay to wait for another couple of weeks and do it in February, if that's okay with you.
that is fine with me.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So with that being said, we don't have a closed meeting tonight, and then our next item is to adjourn. It's 6:57 right now. Let's reconvene for the business meeting at 7:05. We'll push it back a few minutes so we can run to the restroom.